What if I told you that America, land of the free, home of democracy, once stood just a heartbeat away from turning into a dictatorship? This isn't a plot from a political thriller. This is real history. There was a time when democratic institutions wavered, when powerful individuals pushed the boundaries of the Constitution, and when fear, war, and desperation nearly tipped the scales toward tyranny. In today's episode of Civitas Secrets, we take you on a journey through some of the most dangerous moments in American history, moments when the nation teetered on the edge of authoritarian rule. From President Lincoln's emergency powers to FDR's sweeping wartime controls, from secret surveillance programs to the shadows of McCarthyism, we're diving into the stories the textbooks often gloss over. Because the truth is, democracy is not guaranteed, and the past shows us just how fragile freedom can be. So buckle up. This is when the USA almost turned into a dictatorship. It was the bloodiest war in American history, the Civil War. Over 600,000 lives lost. The Union was crumbling, and President Abraham Lincoln faced a horrifying reality. Save the Constitution or save the country? Lincoln chose the country. To preserve the Union, he suspended habeas corpus, the legal right to a trial before imprisonment. Thousands of suspected Confederate sympathizers were jailed without charges. He bypassed Congress, blockaded southern ports, and raised troops unilaterally. Critics screamed dictatorship. Newspapers accused him of becoming a tyrant in a stovepipe hat. But Lincoln argued, measures otherwise unconstitutional might become lawful by becoming indispensable to the preservation of the Constitution. In other words, breaking the rules to save the system. The question is, did the ends justify the means? Even today, legal scholars still debate whether Lincoln's sweeping emergency powers were heroic or the first step down a dangerous path. Because once a leader gains unchecked power, even for a good cause, it's not always easy to give it back. When Franklin D. Roosevelt took office in 1933, America was on its knees. The Great Depression had shattered the economy. Banks collapsed. Families starved. Democracy itself seemed to be on life support. And then came FDR. With bold confidence and his famous line, "The only thing we have to fear is fear itself," he launched the New Deal. Massive federal programs, Social Security, public works, a bigger government than the nation had ever seen. Desperate times? Yes. But FDR's grip tightened even more during World War II. He issued Executive Order 9066, leading to the internment of over 120,000 Japanese Americans, most of them citizens, locked away in camps without trial. He ran for and won a third and fourth term in office, breaking every tradition of American presidency. Critics warned, 4 terms is how dictators rise. Still, FDR's popularity soared. He was seen as the man who saved capitalism, crushed the Nazis, and put America back on the map. But beneath the victory parades was a darker lesson. How much freedom are we willing to trade in the face of fear? And how easily can democratic systems bend when power concentrates in one man? The Nazis were gone, but a new enemy emerged, the Soviet Union. The Cold War had begun, and with it came a new kind of fear: communism. In the halls of Congress, one man rose to power through paranoia: Senator Joseph McCarthy. He claimed communists had infiltrated the US government, Hollywood, the military, everywhere. There wasn't much evidence. There weren't many convictions. But that didn't matter. People were blacklisted, fired, shunned, sometimes jailed, based on suspicion alone. Careers ended. Families were destroyed. McCarthy held hearings on live TV, dragging citizens before the Senate to answer one haunting question: are you now or have you ever been a member of the Communist Party? This wasn't just political theater. It was a warning shot to free speech, freedom of association, and dissent. America, the land of the free, was acting like the regimes it opposed. The Constitution didn't change, but fear rewrote the rules in people's minds. For a brief moment, it didn't take tanks or a tyrant. All it took was a microphone, a stage, and a frightened nation ready to believe the worst. In 1968, Richard Nixon returned to the spotlight, promising law and order. But behind the scenes, his administration was running something darker: a web of surveillance, secrecy, and manipulation. They called it the Plumbers, a covert unit tasked with stopping information leaks by any means necessary: wiretaps, break-ins, bribes, blackmail. And it all came crashing down with Watergate, a break-in at the Democratic National Committee headquarters, ordered by Nixon's men to spy on political opponents. At first, the president denied everything, but slowly, piece by piece, the truth leaked. The tapes, the cover-up, the hush money, the Senate launched hearings, the Supreme Court got involved, and even Nixon's own party began to turn on him. But here's the chilling part. The Constitution held. The system worked, but just barely. Had Nixon succeeded, it could have rewritten the limits of executive power forever. Instead, on August 8, 1974, Nixon became the first U.S. president to resign in disgrace. But the shadow he cast of unchecked power, mass surveillance, and political retribution never fully disappeared. Because if it happened once, it can happen again. September 11, 2001. America was attacked in a way no one saw coming. In the ashes of the Twin Towers, the Pentagon, and a Pennsylvania field, fear turned into resolve, and resolve turned into legislation. Just 45 days later, Congress passed the USA Patriot Act. Most didn't even read it. It expanded government surveillance powers like never before. Phone records, emails, financial data, even library books were fair game. No warrants needed, no probable cause, just suspicion. What's worse? Most Americans didn't know just how deep it went until Edward Snowden blew the whistle over a decade later. Mass surveillance became the norm. The NSA tracked millions of citizens, not just suspected terrorists. The justification? National security. But the question remained, where's the line between security and control? Presidents Bush and Obama both extended and defended these powers. Drone strikes, indefinite detentions, secret watch lists. Rights were suspended in the name of safety, and just like that, a new kind of invisible government took hold. One fueled not by elections, but by fear. A government with eyes everywhere, and accountability nowhere. By the late 20th century, America had emerged as a global superpower, but not without a cost. The forces that once threatened democracy from the outside were now being echoed inside its own borders. After World War II, Americans feared communism like a plague. Politicians capitalized on that fear. The Red Scare swept the nation, and with it came a powerful tool: propaganda. It wasn't just posters or speeches, it was movies, radio shows, textbooks, and school drills. Kids were taught to duck and cover, while families built fallout shelters. Suspicion was the new patriotism. And then came Senator Joseph McCarthy. He wasn't just another politician. He was the face of a witch hunt. He claimed hundreds of communists had infiltrated the US government, the military, and even Hollywood. No evidence? No problem. McCarthy turned hearsay into headlines, and the American people believed it. Careers were ruined, lives destroyed, all on the back of paranoia. This wasn't democracy in action. It was a chilling display of how fear can override justice. Here's the kicker. Congress let it happen. The courts were slow to react, and the public, caught in a whirlwind of fear and nationalism, cheered it on. Journalists who questioned it were labeled traitors. Teachers who taught critical thinking were fired. Entire communities turned on each other. The Constitution was still in place, but its power was fading under the weight of mass surveillance, blacklists, and unquestioning obedience. This was no dictatorship on paper, but in practice the systems of control were all too familiar. It wasn't until McCarthy overplayed his hand, accusing the US Army of being infiltrated, that the tide began to turn. Televised hearings exposed his tactics. The public finally saw the fear-mongering for what it was. But the scars were permanent. In the shadows, federal agencies had grown more powerful. The FBI, under J. Edgar Hoover, kept secret files on everyone from civil rights leaders to sitting senators. It was a silent shift, the kind that doesn't make headlines until it's too late. What started as a fight against communism became a blueprint for authoritarianism, hidden behind flags, slogans, and patriotic songs. America hadn't fallen, but it had walked disturbingly close to the edge. Again, fast forward to the 21st century. Technology has evolved, ideologies have shifted, but the temptation to concentrate power never went away. In fact, it may be stronger than ever. After the attacks on September 11th, the United States once again found itself gripped by fear. But this time it wasn't communists, it was terrorists. The response was swift and sweeping. The Patriot Act gave the federal government unprecedented surveillance powers. Emails, phone calls, bank records, all subject to monitoring in the name of security. Privacy wasn't taken by force, it was surrendered willingly. Suddenly, dissent became dangerous. Protests were monitored, whistleblowers were prosecuted, journalists were pressured or silenced. And in the years that followed, the boundaries between truth and fiction blurred. Social media became a battlefield of disinformation. Algorithms fed people outrage instead of facts. And the political divide grew deeper until neighbors saw each other not as fellow citizens, but as enemies. This is where the danger truly lies, because dictatorship doesn't always arrive with boots and tanks. Sometimes it walks in wearing a suit, backed by votes, and cloaked in the language of freedom. Modern authoritarianism isn't about abolishing elections. It's about undermining trust in them. It's about sowing doubt, pushing conspiracy theories, and convincing people that only one person, one party, or one ideology can save the country. We've seen warning signs. Leaders trying to discredit the press, attempts to overturn election results, calls to jail political opponents. Each act chips away at democracy, not all at once, but piece by piece. And here's the chilling part. It doesn't take a coup to lose a republic. All it takes is apathy, division, and fear. If people stop caring, stop questioning, stop voting, the foundations begin to crumble. But history isn't destiny. If we learn from the near misses, if we stay informed, vigilant, and united, then democracy can endure. The story of America is messy, loud, and imperfect, but it's still ours to write. And in every chapter, the same truth echoes. Freedom is never guaranteed. It must be protected. So, when did America almost become a dictatorship? More times than you might think. But it didn't, because people paid attention, because institutions, despite their flaws, held the line. This has been Civitas Secrets. If you believe history matters, if you want the truth they never taught you in school, subscribe now, because we're just getting started. And make sure to subscribe Civitas Secrets for more videos like this. Thanks for watching.